And good morning once again, my brothers and sisters. I want to welcome you to another Living Hope Today Bible study. We're thankful that you're here. And today we find ourselves in Exodus chapter 15. Now, a lot has happened. We've been through the plagues. We watched Pharaoh resist God. We watched God crush him. And in chapter 15, we have listened to Moses and Miriam offer this tremendous praise to God for all that he's done. I mean, it has to be quite a relief. I mean, quite a spiritual high, wouldn't you think, to know that the powerful God, the Almighty One that's called you, is he parted the waters. She walked through on dry ground. I mean, you're in a miraculous place. But hey, okay, the water came back together. The Egyptian army was wiped out. All of a sudden, all the crashing waves and the wind died down, and you find yourself standing somewhere in a desert with over 1.5 million of your friends, right? I mean, this is a huge, huge company of people. And now you're standing there. Okay, you're not in slavery in Egypt anymore. That's good. But where are you? And where are you going? And how are you going to get there? And what's going to happen to you? I mean, just think of all the questions we would ask if God told us, hey, just start traveling. Remember with Abraham? Hey, Abraham, you need to move. And I'm not going to tell you where. Just pack up, start moving, and then I'll show you where I want you to go after you've gone. These Israelites are in a similar position. Where are we? What are we supposed to do now? Well, the text is fascinating from here as we think about their journey. We look at this in Exodus 15:22. The praise song is over. Moses led Israel from the Red Sea, and they went into the desert of Shur. For 3 days they traveled in the desert, and they didn't find water. Now, you and I, where's water? Well, it's over there at the faucet. We don't think about the snow in the mountains and the refineries, the purification process, all the pipes in the ground that end up making that faucet work. But when you're out in the desert somewhere, there's no faucet. What are you going to do for water? Their supplies are way low. They don't have water. It's an essential thing for life, right? And so they finally find this place called Mara. When they came to Mara, oh man, they could not drink its water because it was bitter. What does that mean? Well, some people say it was too salty. Some people use the word brackish in their commentaries. Maybe it had too much metal content in it. We're not told. But we're told that this place is called Mara because the water is bitter. Just a little bunny trail. You remember in the book of Ruth when Naomi is coming back from Moab because her husband has died and her sons have died, and she says, "Just call me Mara," because she's so bitter about all that's happened to her in her life. Well, these Israelites, here we are, standing out in the desert. We're all thirsty. We've been walking for 3 days. Now we get to the water and we can't drink it. What are we going to do? Well, let's grumble. And whose fault is it? We got to assign blame, right? Well, it's got to be Moses' fault. So the people grumbled against Moses. They said, hey, what are we supposed to drink? Okay, it's amazing, isn't it, how quickly this unbelievably powerful miracle that is evidence of the closeness, the concern, the power of God on their behalf, that they should be overwhelmed with the fact that God is taking care of them. But no, we're thirsty. The water's bitter. What are we going to do now? Hey, Moses, why'd you bring us out here? What are we doing out here? Again, we're already to a place where we're starting to have a little anger at the mission. Well, Moses, what does he do? He does what a good pastor does. He cries out to the Lord. Praise. And the Lord showed him a piece of wood. Okay, hey Moses, you see that piece of wood over there? I'm going to tell you what to do. Throw it into the water. It says he threw it into the water and the water became sweet. There's no wood known to man, at least that I could find, that has any sort of impact on salination or a brackish kind of water. This is just a miracle of God. But God doesn't just say, water be okay. God uses Moses, uses the branch of wood. In other words, Moses has to participate in this miracle before God does it, as a demonstration to the people that Moses is leading them by God's command and that God is working through his leader, Moses. Okay, the water becomes sweet. All the flocks get their thirst quenched, so do all the people. And then look what it says. The Lord made a decree. Oh, hey, you belong to me, right? Well, I have some conditions for you. Here's a decree for you. I'm going to make a statement, and I'm going to give you a law. I'm giving you a decree. I'm giving you a law. And hey, I'm going to test you. You know that God sometimes will test us to see if we really understand, we really believe, we're really wholeheartedly following him. He's going to test these Israelites. And as the text moves forward, he said, watch these conditions, because these conditions run all the way through the book. If you listen carefully. Listen to what? Listen to the voice of the Lord your God. What are we supposed to do? Listen to what God says. Okay, you and me, how do we know what he says? He's given us his word. All right, we read his word to understand what he wants. We ask him to give us ears to hear. We listen to what he says. Okay, if you take what you've listened for, what you've understood God to say, and then you do what is right in his eyes, again, this is so beautiful the way this is stated, because I like to do things that are right in my eyes, and the way I think about things, what I think makes logical sense to me. This implies a submission to God. I need to do what's right in God's eyes, to live according to what he says. I need to hear what he says. I need to put it in my heart. I need to implement it into my behavior so that I am doing the things that are right before him. Oh, more conditions. Listen, if you pay attention to his commands and you keep all his decrees, there's the same thing restated. Listen to what he wants and then do what he wants. I mean, this is not rocket science. But oh, how hard it is to get the sinful natures that we all possess to yield ourselves to this simple truth. Pay attention to what God says and live as if you believe what he says and you want to obey what he says. And then God says, look, if you meet these conditions, what does he say? I will not bring on you any of the diseases I brought on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord. And then he adds this, who heals you. I'm intimately involved with you. I'll heal you. I'll take care of you all the way. If you think it's miraculous that you saw a branch get thrown into the water and now you can drink it, you haven't seen anything yet. God's resources are unlimited. But the faith of those following him seems to be very limited. Okay, but God's saying, look, meet my conditions. Listen to what I tell you. Do what I say. This is the same dilemma Jesus found in, I think it's Luke 6:46. Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and you're not going to do what I say? Again, this is just so basic for all of us. Listen to what he says. Do what he says. Well, the story continues. Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs. Well, that's great. How many tribes are there? There's 12 tribes, 12 springs. Everybody gets their own spring. All right, and there's 70 palm trees. If you know if there's any significance to the number 70, let me know. I couldn't figure it out. And they camped there near the water. So, okay, first God makes the water sweet at Marah, and then he takes them to Elim. This is kind of like an oasis in the desert. Here's 12 springs. Here's a whole bunch of shade trees, palm trees everywhere. Let's stop here and camp here. That's what they do. they're provided for. And that's really going to be the point as we move forward. That despite their lack of faith, despite their lack of remembering what God has done in the past, meaning he parted the sea and saved them from the Egyptian army, God continues to provide for these people even though they don't think they're going to be okay if they trust him. God says, meet my conditions. And they're not hard to meet. Listen to what I say, do what I say. That's it. Now, before I go today, I want to talk about one other thing. I haven't studied the book of Exodus much in my years as a pastor. And that's on me, sorry. But in the end, going through this with you has brought me to a realization that I didn't know before, and that is that there is a little controversy about where all these things happened. Where are these places? Where is Mara? Where is Elam? Where did they cross the Red Sea? And the deeper I've dug into this, the more diversity I've found. So I just want to present that to you. We can ask ourselves the question, why hasn't God made this clear? Well, of course, I'm sure what would be thousands of years ago when the Exodus happened, they didn't have Google Maps. The people that were there were just on the earth, no satellites to look at. Okay, well, who maps the desert anyway? All right, and after thousands of years, is the water still flowing in the same way? Are the mountains, have some of them been raised in the dust and they can't see them anymore, and others have appeared? I mean, how has it changed since this all took place? But just to end here today, let me show you this. Here's a map of basically the Sinai Peninsula, and I know the lettering's really small, but I'll try to make it clear to you. So one idea is they come out of Egypt, all right? They come out of Egypt, and okay, they cross up here somewhere. There's confusion about the Red Sea wording because in Hebrew you could translate Red Sea as the Sea of Reeds. So does that mean they crossed water up here somewhere? Maybe the water was even different than it is today. Or maybe they crossed right here at the top of the Gulf of Suez. Is that where they crossed? Well, if you follow this track, you have to say, yeah, somewhere in there they crossed. And then they came to a place called Mara along the eastern shore of the Gulf of Suez. And then Elam was after that. And eventually they come all the way down here to Mount Sinai. That's theory one. Well, it's probably like theory three. There's a bunch of theories. But in the end, all the reading you do ends with, but we don't know for sure. And so you can decide for yourself. The second idea that's pretty prevalent is this purple line where there's this place called Nueva, where people have discovered sort of a shelf in the Sea of Aqaba, a shelf that's basically flat with a fairly smooth slope down to the main level of the seabed, and then another fairly smooth slope to get you out of there. It's a place where a bunch of people could go through, and divers have looked at it. They think, oh, look, we see coral, and the coral's shaped in the shape of chariots or wagon wheels. This could be some debris from where the Egyptians were wiped out when the sea came back together. And they would say, in this theory, they would say the crossing was at the Sea of Aqaba. And then they would say Mara is somewhere over here, and so is Elim somewhere over here in the desert on the east side of the Gulf of Aqaba. And that puts them in a position where Mount Sinai is here, which we'll get to Mount Sinai shortly as the journey continues. This is where God brings the Ten Commandments to Moses. It contains a lot of history. Google Maps, even today, will take you to theory number 2. They say Mount Sinai is this one right here. This one in the middle over here is not on their map as Mount Sinai. And the tourist attraction is here, Mount Sinai. Anyway, I want you to just be aware of the differences. And I want you to think about the fact that God doesn't think it's that important for us to be able to nail this down step by step. We take the miracle by faith. We take the journey by faith, knowing that there's a lot of stuff in the Bible that we can't pin down exactly. Nonetheless, doesn't mean it didn't happen. I mean, only 8 people survived the flood, but there's evidence for the flood everywhere in the world that would tell us, yeah, that's a factual account. Anyway, I want you to be aware of the controversy. You can research it on YouTube or wherever for yourself to see if you can solve it. If you come up with the provable solution, please let me know so that we can take the scholarship of modern times by storm. God bless you, church. Serve him well today.
Lord, we give you glory.